been interesting times for the headlines. Australia has called up 3,000 military reserves to tackle the country's ongoing bushfire crisis. Prime Minister Scott Morrison announced Saturday the largest call-up in living his memory. Tens of thousands of Indonesians are still unable to return to their waterlogged homes after flooding hit the Jakarta capital region, killing at least 53 people. And President Trump defends the killing of Iranian general and accuses him of plotting an imminent and sinister attacks on Americans. A Middle East expert says that the death of Iran's Revolutionary Guards commander Qasem Soleimani in Baghdad is one of the biggest events in the Middle East for a long time, and that Iran will most likely retaliate, threatening the U.S. and its allies' interests in the region. Amalma Angeles, wherever you're watching from around the world, thank you very much for joining us, and now to the news. First to Australia, where up to 3,000 military reservists were called up to tackle Australia's relentless bushfire crisis on Saturday, as tens of thousands of residents fled their homes amid catastrophic conditions. Take a look. Temperatures soared above 40 degrees Celsius or 104 degrees Fahrenheit, and gale-force winds fanned hundreds of fires, many of which are already burning out of control across the country. Prime Minister Scott Morrison announced the largest military call-up in living memory to assist thousands of volunteer firefighters who have been battling blazes for months on end. A state of emergency has been declared across much of Australia's heavily populated southeast, and more than 100,000 people have been told to leave their homes across 3 states. Thousands heeded that call Friday, abandoning summer holidays and piling into cars that clogged the highways, linking southeastern coastal towns with the relative safety of Sydney or larger towns. New South Wales Rural Fire Service Commissioner Shane Fitzsimmons added that strong winds and hot temperatures were expected to continue into the evening. A firefighter in Bruley, New South Wales, says his crew are ready despite being tired after weeks of battling fires, as Australia bushfire crisis shows no sign of ending.
Yeah, so over last week we've had a fair bit of activity, but this fire started about 114 days ago, so we've been at it now for probably 4 or 5 weeks. The crews are getting tired, but they're coping well, and we've been managing their fatigue, and they're good to go for this next fire event. We're expecting that it may come from the northwest and go below us to the south of Browley, and then anticipating a southerly change later on this afternoon, which may push that fire back into Browley. We're about as prepared as what we can be. We've prepared for the worst, but we're hoping for the best outcome. We do have lots of out-of-area appliances in Browley itself for this division, the Browley division, of this fire today.
And an evacuee from Australian bushfire said, "I just want to be alive." Take a look.
It is devastating, but my main thing is I just want to be alive and for all of us to be safe. I really don't have any feelings about my house at the moment at all. I am really scared after New Year's Eve at midday, when the town went black and all the smoke came with the southerly change from the fire that was up on the Princess Highway near Bunnings. It honestly felt like one of those movies at the end of the world. It was black, orange, and the smoke was so thick you felt if you were to breathe it in you were going to suffocate. And that frightened me so much in my life that now I don't even think about the properties.
We heard the helicopters go across. They were dropping buckets in the lake. We then saw 3 or 4 small fires go to medium fires on the far side of the lake. And literally within 10 minutes of the first chopper dropping their buckets, embers started to come across the lake, started to burn the ground foliage, and there were spot fires everywhere. At the end of the day, they were just exhausted. like physically exhausted. You know, they've come from Bateman's Bay, other towns. We can only see a small snapshot of what happened here, you know, but people aren't fresh. They've come from other bushfires, so they were just quite literally lifting up their BA masks, necking water, and then putting their BA back on, and then just helping out. Well, I don't think it can be much worse than it was on New Year's Eve. Yeah, we got through New Year's Eve. You can see the results of it. So I suppose if it's the same, then we'll do what we can. If it's worse, we'll have to try a bit harder. I don't know. The situation's quite fluid.
Several emergency warnings were issued on Saturday, including one blaze southwest of Sydney that's feared could reach the city's outskirts. Sydney recorded its highest ever temperature of 48.1 degrees Celsius or 118.6 degrees Fahrenheit. In the western suburb of Penrith and the nation's capital Canberra hit 42.9 degrees Celsius, also an all-time record according to the Bureau of Meteorology. Regional bushfires left Melbourne shrouded in smoke, and people described the effects of the ongoing bushfire crisis as surreal and overwhelming.
It's just a bit surreal. Like, you don't usually think that 50 metres in front of you it's quite hazy. But besides from that, it's just, I think you just think about the people who it's actually affecting rather than just tourists in the city. You think about the firefighters out there and the families out there as well that are all battling the fires. I
just feel nervous. I feel uneasy. I don't really feel like you can go about your daily business without having that feeling in your stomach, just concerned for loved ones and just completely overwhelmed by the smoke. I mean, global warming is making it unignorable. It used to be something that would happen for a small period of the season in Australia during the summer, and now the entire summer our country is burning. It's being in a major metropolitan city and being completely overwhelmed by smoke, it stops you. No one can ignore it anymore. It's the environment has forced us to a point of no return, really.
It's insane. We drove from Sydney yesterday and through close to the area that was very affected, and the smoke around that area was much worse than these conditions. You had visibility of 200 meters maybe. So it's...
We've never seen this before.
No, never.
No.
Tens of thousands of Indonesians were still unable to return to their waterlogged homes on Saturday after flooding hit the Jakarta capital region, killing at least 53 people. More than 170,000 people took refuge in shelters across the massive urban conglomeration, home to some 30 million, after whole neighborhoods were submerged. Torrential rains that started on New Year's Eve unleashed flash floods and landslides in the region and neighboring Limbak at the south end of the Java island. On Saturday, Indonesia's disaster agency said the death toll had already climbed to 53, with one person still missing. The government said Friday it would start cloud seeding to the west of the capital, inducing rain using chemicals sprayed from planes to prevent approaching rainfall from pounding the region. Now, waters had receded in many areas and power was being restored after being cut off in hundreds of districts. The health ministry has said it deployed some 11,000 health workers and soldiers to distribute medicine, disinfectant, hygiene kits, and food in a bid to stave off outbreaks of hepatitis A, mosquito-borne dengue fever, and other illnesses, including infections linked to contact with dead animals. Hundreds of soldiers and rescuers frantically picked through the rubble of a collapsed building in southern Cambodia on Saturday looking for bodies as the death toll from the disaster rose to 7. Take a look. Now, they used excavators, drills, and power saws to clear concrete. The morning after the 7-story hotel under construction in Seaside, Kep Province, crumbled to the ground with an estimated 30 workers inside, prompting an all-night rescue. It was the latest deadly accident to mar the kingdom's poorly regulated building sector, even as hotels, high-rises, and casinos spring up in a construction boom. Cambodian leader Hun Sen, who traveled to the site on Friday evening, said on his official Facebook page that 7 people had been killed so far, while the search continues. 18 survivors were also pulled out of the debris, according to the Kep Provincial Administration, but tearful relatives were waiting for more information about loved ones who had not been found. And turning to Africa, millions of Zimbabweans who are being pushed into hunger by prolonged drought and economic crisis face an increasingly desperate situation, warns the United Nations World Food Program. Take a look.
Things are rotting in this market because of prices. Because today tomatoes it will go $250, tomorrow $300, tomorrow $400, and people they don't have that money.
2019 has been an exceptionally tough year for all Zimbabweans. We see a factor or a combination of factors, economic downturn, climate change and subsequent droughts that have led more than 8 million people into food insecurity. As in WFP, we're looking at ramping up our response over the next couple of weeks to reach almost double of what we have planned.
Years of drought have slashed food production in Zimbabwe, once an African breadbasket. This year's maize harvest was down 50% on 2018, with overall cereal output less than half the national requirement. By August of 2019, WFP was forced to launch an emergency lean season assistance program to meet rising demands and needs months earlier than anticipated. Since then, food shortages have become ever more pronounced. This month, maize was only available in half of the markets WFP monitors countrywide. And the news continues. Zero and Eagle News. We'll be right back.
Visiting the Philippines, Manila or Quezon City is a popular destination. But oftentimes the hustle and bustle of the city can be more stressful on your vacation. So when you feel the need to reconnect to nature or relax again, there's a beautiful oasis just outside of the city called the Garden at Ciudad de Victoria. That you can see here include hydrangea, snapdragon, and stargazers. They're truly beautiful. The gardens at Ciudad de Victoria are so peaceful, tranquil, and beautiful that it's become a haven for young couples and a very popular venue for engagement photos. The next time you want an escape from the big city, the garden at Ciudad de Victoria is a wonderful place to visit.
Welcome back, and we're still following the developments out of Australia and the raging bushfires there. Electricity supplies in Australia's most populous state, including its largest city, Sydney, were under threat on Saturday after bushfires took out 2 substations. Now, authorities are warning of rolling blackouts if conditions worsen. State Energy Minister Matt Keane tweeted that the blazes have raged across New South Wales and they brought down transmission lines in the state's south connecting with neighboring Victoria. State Energy Minister Matt Keane urged people to reduce unnecessary electricity use and turn off pool pumps, lights in unoccupied rooms, and avoid using washing machines and dishwashers. Transgrid Chief Executive Paul Italiano said the system was coping but under stress. He warned the loss of another major power station could mean load shedding, power cuts to prevent the electricity grid from collapsing. Transgrid Chief Executive Paul Italiano also told national broadcaster ABC, quote, "It is no longer operating as a single national electricity market, and that has compromised the availability of energy to New South Wales. New South Wales, which is under a 3rd state of emergency over the severe fire conditions, has a population of just under 8 million, of whom around 65% live in the Greater Sydney region." In a related news, 2 people have died and a national park has been almost totally destroyed on Australia's tourist haven of Kangaroo Island, according to authorities on Saturday. Devastating conditions overnight helped flames rip through the island's Flinders Chase National Park and threatened more heavily populated areas of the island. 2 people were killed when flames overran their vehicle near the town of Pandana, police said, and they have yet to be identified. Fires began on Kangaroo Island, which sits off the coast southwest of Adelaide, on December 20 and have now burned over 1,000 square kilometers. The national park is home to kangaroos, koalas, and echidnas. To other news now. President Donald Trump said top Iranian General Qasem Soleimani was terminated when he was on the verge of attacking U.S. diplomats. But he insisted that Washington is not seeking to topple Iran's government. Here's his defense.
Last night, at my direction, the United States military successfully executed a flawless precision strike that killed the #1 terrorist anywhere in the world, Qasem Soleimani. Soleimani was plotting imminent and sinister attacks on American diplomats and military personnel, but we caught him in the act and terminated him.
He also blamed his decision to eliminate Soleimani on recent rocket strikes that killed an American and injured 4 American servicemen very badly, as well as a violent assault on our embassy in Baghdad, he said, were carried out at the direction of Soleimani.
We will find you, we will eliminate you, we will always protect our diplomats, service members, all Americans, and our allies. For years, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps and its ruthless Quds Force, under Soleimani's leadership, has targeted, injured, and murdered hundreds of American civilians and servicemen. The recent attacks on U.S. targets in Iraq, including rocket strikes that killed an American and injured 4 American servicemen very badly, as well as a violent assault on our embassy in Baghdad, were carried out at the direction of Soleimani, contributing to terrorist plots as far away as New Delhi and London. Today we remember and honor the victims of Soleimani's many atrocities, and we take comfort in knowing that his reign of terror is over. We took action last night to stop a war. We did not take action to start a war. I have deep respect for the Iranian people. They are a remarkable people with an incredible heritage and unlimited potential. We do not seek regime change. However, the Iranian regime's aggression in the region, including the use of proxy fighters to destabilize its neighbors, must end, and it must end now.
Speaking separately, a senior State Department official said the strike was, quote, supported by very solid intelligence. Soleimani, they said, was planning imminent attacks against American diplomats and our armed forces members in Iraq, Lebanon, Syria, and in the region, according to the official. Soleimani had just arrived at Baghdad's airport and was traveling in a convoy alongside officials from such militia when their cars were hit by several U.S. missiles on Friday. Iraqi militia leader Abu Mahdi al-Muhandis was also killed in the strike. He commanded the Kataib Hezbollah group, also backed by Iran, which Washington blamed for a rocket attack that killed a U.S. civilian contractor in northern Iraq last week. Now, Tehran substitute Friday prayer leader Ahmad Khatami said that the U.S. will no longer find peace during his address in Tehran on Friday, following the U.S.-led airstrike that killed the top general, Qasem Soleimani. He said, "We will take revenge that will turn their day to a dark night." According to Khatami, Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei meanwhile said severe revenge awaits the criminals behind the attack. Now, President Donald Trump's order to kill a top Iranian commander has laid bare Washington's stark political divide, with the Republicans rallying behind the president and the Democrats warning that Friday's attack could trigger a devastating military confrontation. Democratic lawmakers and aides say congressional leaders, including House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, both fierce Trump critics, were left in the dark about the deadly strike. The White House traditionally gives warning to senior members of both parties in the Senate and House of Representatives ahead of a major military action. But one Republican confidant of President Trump, Senator Lindsey Graham, said he was briefed about the potential operation when he visited with President Trump this week at his Florida resort. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell and Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer commented on the U.S. strike that killed the top Iranian commander. Take a look.
No man alive was more directly responsible for the deaths of more American service members than Qasem Soleimani, the leader of the Quds Force within Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. Soleimani's schemes and his agents killed hundreds of American service members in Iraq and Afghanistan.
What was the legal basis for conducting this operation? And how far does that legal basis extend? The President does not have the authority for a war with Iran. If he plans a large increase in troops and potential hostility over a longer time, the administration will require congressional approval and the approval of the American people. The President's decision may add to an already dangerous and difficult situation in the Middle East.
This terrorist mastermind was not just a threat to the United States and Israel. For more than a decade, he masterminded Iran's malevolent and destabilizing work throughout the entire Middle East. He created, sustained, and directed terrorist proxies everywhere from Yemen to Iraq to Syria.
The deaths of U.S. troops are on his hands, and no American mourns his passing. He deserves to be brought to justice. He deserved to be brought to justice for his crimes. But no matter how rightly reviled he was in the West, he was a senior figure of the Iranian government. And there's no doubt that Iran will in fact respond. Indeed, they've already vowed vengeance. This is and was an enormous escalation. And it follows a string of dubious actions that President Trump has taken that have drastically increased the prospects and the risk of war with Iran and danger to Americans. And there's no doubt the risks are greater today because of the actions Donald Trump has taken, walking away from diplomacy, walking away from international agreements, relying on threats of force. We don't have the kind of risk and provocation cycle when the nuclear deal was still in place, but it exists now.
Meanwhile, fresh U.S. troops were setting up in Kuwait, part of Washington's plan to protect bases and personnel across the Middle East in anticipation of Iranian-directed violence. Defense Secretary Mark Esper said the 3,000 soldiers had been put on notice earlier in the week, and he called the order for the additional soldiers an appropriate and precautionary action, citing increased threat levels against U.S. personnel and facilities. The United States has about 5,000 troops in Iraq and another 55,000 across the Middle East, all of whom could be targeted by Iran. The U.S. Embassy in Baghdad told Americans Friday to depart Iraq immediately because of the heightened tensions. Some U.S. cities have also heightened their alert status, concerned that Iran could use its ties with terror groups like the Lebanese-based Hezbollah in an attempt to strike the U.S. homeland. Meanwhile, analysts said the strike, which sent world oil prices soaring, would be a game changer in the tensions between Iran and the U.S. Let's listen in.
This is probably one of the biggest events to happen in the Middle East for quite some time now. The Iranian General Qasem Soleimani was a very powerful figure. Most would say that he was the second most powerful figure in Iran. And he was responsible for Iran's regional strategy. So Iran's influence in Iraq, Lebanon, Syria, Yemen, other parts of the region. He was very much the architect of that. It had almost been sort of thought that he was too big and too powerful to be shot or killed. And so most people would not have predicted this. And I think most people are surprised that the Americans decided to take out someone this powerful. The Iranians will most likely retaliate, beginning with, of course, threats against American nationals, but also in other ways. I mean, Iran will probably use its influence on the Iraqi government. The Iraqi government will probably, for the first time, order American troops to leave the country, something that hasn't happened since 2003. Anti-Americanism could come back.
Analysts also say that it would have bigger ramifications than the 2011 U.S. operation that killed Al-Qaeda chief Osama bin Laden and the 2019 American raid that killed Islamic State group Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi.
This is not just America who we're speaking about. We're talking about many of America's allies. In many European countries, especially in a country like Iraq, they need American cover and they work with America, whether that's in the fight against ISIS or the political process. So if the US goes, it's very likely that many other sort of Western diplomatic missions will also have to go. So it's a huge sort of, let's say, destabilizing moment. And it's we're just not sure how much, how far it can go. There was a norm that was existing before, which would suggest that the Iranians and Americans had this kind of almost tacit agreement to not attack each other in Iraq. And so they could attack different interests, they could attack in the Gulf also, but in Iraq it was not. I think that has been squashed. I think there is a new game. There are new rules to the game, and I think they're both more willing to attack each other directly.
Meanwhile, the Department of Foreign Affairs called on Filipinos to cancel travel to Iraq and to coordinate closely with the Philippine Embassy in Baghdad in case of a mandatory evacuation. The DFA also called on all Filipinos to cancel until further notice any travel to Iraq in view of the current situation in the country, it said in a statement. The advisory came after the death of General Qasem Soleimani, leader of Iran's elite Quds force, due to an airstrike at the Baghdad International Airport. The DFA also said the situation in Iraq is being closely monitored and the DFA is prepared to send a rapid response team should it be deemed necessary. Due to heightened tensions in Iraq and the region, the U.S. earlier urged all Americans to depart Iraq immediately and avoid its embassy in the country. Meanwhile, the British government on Saturday advised UK nationals to avoid traveling to Iraq and Iran too in face of heightened tensions in the Middle East following the US killing of the top Iranian commander in Baghdad. In its statement, the British Foreign Office urged UK nationals in the region to remain vigilant and monitor the media carefully. On Friday, Foreign Minister Dominic Raab had said that while London had always recognized the aggressive threat posed by Soleimani and his Quds force, following his death, he said, "We urge all parties to de-escalate further conflict. It's in none of our interests." The U.S. Senate's top Republican swatted aside Democratic demands related to the impeachment trial of President Donald Trump as the warring sides failed to agree on a start date for the historic action. Resuming work after a holiday break with no signs of a crack in the stalemate, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell assailed House Democrats for having botched their own impeachment process last month. And he said that without progress on deciding a timeline for the trial, his chamber would turn to ordinary business until Democrats, quote, muster the courage to transmit the articles of impeachment.
So look, you better believe senators have started forming opinions about these critical questions over the last weeks and months. We sure have, especially in light of the precedent-breaking theatrics that House Democrats chose to engage in. But here's where we are, Mr. President. Their turn is over. They've done enough damage. It's the Senate's turn now to render sober judgment as the framers envisioned. But we can't hold a trial without the articles.
In December, the House of Representatives impeached a U.S. president for only the third time ever, charging President Trump with abuse of power and obstruction of Congress related to his pressure on Ukraine to launch investigations that would help him politically. Impeachment triggers a trial in the Senate, which is currently controlled by Republicans who are largely loyal to President Trump and are widely expected to acquit him. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has so far declined to transmit the articles of impeachment as she seeks assurances that the trial would meet Democratic calls for fairness, including commitments to allow witnesses to testify. Democrats want the initial rules to include commitments that subpoenaed documents be presented to the Senate and trial managers be allowed to call administration officials, including Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and Acting White House Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney as witnesses.
We are not asking for critics of the president to serve as witnesses in the trial. We are asking only that the president's men, his top advisors, tell their side of the story. And Leader McConnell, once again, has been unable to make one argument, one single argument, as to why these witnesses and these documents should not be part of a trial.
In other news, Indonesia is stepping up sea and aerial patrols of islands near the disputed South China Sea, according to an official on Saturday, following a diplomatic spat over trespassing Chinese vessels. Military aircraft and 3 warships with some 600 Navy, Army, and Air Force personnel have been deployed to waters around the Natuna Islands, which border the South China Sea. Indonesia has detained Chinese vessels in the fishing-rich waters in the past. Defense Commander Vice Admiral Yudo Margono said in a statement that, quote, territorial violations by foreign vessels in Indonesian exclusive economic zone is a threat to Indonesian sovereignty. The move also comes after Indonesia summoned the Chinese ambassador this week and lodged a strong protest over a Chinese Coast Guard vessel escorting Chinese fishing boats around the islands in mid-December. Beijing claims the majority of the resource-rich waterway through the so-called Nine-Dash Line, a vague delineation based on maps from the 1940s as the then Republic of China snapped up islands from Japanese control. Indonesia does not have a claim in the South China Sea but said it would not tolerate incursions by China. a key trading partner, into its nearby waters. Beijing responded that it has historic rights in the region and that fishing boats had been carrying out, quote, legal and reasonable activities. Chilean demonstrators again clashed with the police in Santiago in what was the first demonstration of the year against the government of President Sebastián Piñera. Take a look.
La calle no se suelta. Yo creo que vamos a seguir marchando hasta ver realmente soluciones, hasta encontrar que la gente está siendo escuchada.
Authorities have been trying to restore calm in downtown Santiago, which has been roiled by a crisis that initially erupted over metro fare hikes. But it quickly escalated into the most severe outbreak of social unrest since the end of the dictatorship of Augusto Pinochet nearly 30 years ago. Furious Chileans have taken to the streets to register their anger over inequality and particularly to vent at the elites that control much of the country's wealth. President Piñera signed a decree calling for a plebiscite on April 26 to decide whether to replace the current constitution, which dates back to Pinochet's rule. Many in Chile see that replacing the constitution, which smacks of a dark repressive chapter in the country's past, as a way to help end the crisis. Spain's electoral board ordered that Catalan President Quim Torra be disqualified from being a member of Catalonia's regional parliament, meaning he would lose his post. The decision comes after a Spanish court last month convicted him of disobedience for failing to remove separatist symbols from public buildings during an election campaign and banned him from holding public office for 18 months. Many pro-independent supporters, including Torra, have adopted a yellow ribbon to protest the arrest and jailing of the Catalan separatist leaders over the 2017 independence bid, which involved a banned independence referendum. In 2017, Torra's predecessor Artur Mas, who governed Catalonia from 2010 to 2016, was banned from holding public office for 2 years after being found guilty of disobeying a Spanish court when his government staged a banned non-binding independence vote in the wealthy northeastern region in 2014. The U.S. government announced on Thursday it was banning most flavored e-cigarettes in a bid to curb the rising tide of youth vaping. Take a look. The Food and Drug Administration, or FDA, said cartridge-based e-cigarettes in flavors other than tobacco or menthol would be illegal unless specifically authorized by the government. The change will take effect in early February. The ban will outlaw cartridges with fruit, mint, and candy flavors, which are particularly popular with young people. But under industry pressure, it stopped short of the full ban, which was promised in September. In late summer, the country saw a major health crisis tied to vaping in the U.S., with an acute lung illness epidemic that killed more than 50 people. News, we'll be right back.
Tungkulin ng MTRCV ang mag-provide na appropriate ratings sa lahat ng TV show.
Desde las organizaciones de las familias cristianas del local de Barcelona, Distrito Eclesiástico de España, a nuestro queridísimo ministro ejecutivo, nuestro hermano Eduardo Vimonado, a toda su familia y a todos los hermanos alrededor del mundo. ¡Feliz Año Nuevo!
To all the EBC viewers and viewers all around the world, from the EBC Bureau of Barcelona, Spain, we greet you a very happy and prosperous New Year. We are one with 25.
To all EBC bureaus and viewers around the world, from EBC United Kingdom, we greet you all a happy and blessed New Year. We are one with 25.
Traders from the ICF Bank in Frankfurt have expressed their concerns and made predictions for the financial markets after a U.S. airstrike in Iraq killed Iran's Quds Force General Qasem Soleimani on Friday. ICF Bank trader Arthur Brunner confirmed that the markets reacted very nervously to the news in the Middle East. Take a look.
After Donald Trump decided to eliminate an Iranian general in Baghdad, the markets reacted very nervous. The oil price rose 2.5%. The gold rose 1%. And what we see, the safe havens are the markets that are dominated today. I think the situation will escalate. That's my fear. And the Iran announced that they will have a deep revenge, and that's what I'm afraid of. If you're invested in an airline, you are terrified because of the rising costs. What we see today, the biggest loser in the German index DAX is Lufthansa. We will see in the afternoon that in America the airlines will even be the biggest loser. The most important cost factor for the airlines is the kerosene. And when you see that the oil price is rising 2.5% today, you see how important this is and how frightened they must be today.
Oil prices saw record gains back in September last year after attacks on two Saudi Arabian facilities briefly slashed output in the world's top oil exporter by half. In other business news, luxury brand Louis Vuitton is closing a major store in a high-end Hong Kong shopping center, often targeted by democracy protesters, according to local media. Take a look. The international retailer plans to shut its shop in the financial hub's Times Square Mall after its landlord, Wharf Real Estate Investment Corporation, refused to lower the rent, according to the South China Morning Post's report on Friday. The store in the commercial heartland of Causeway Bay, one of the brand's 8 shop fronts in the city, occupies 10,000 square feet of prime second-floor space in the mall. Monthly rent reported costs an estimated 5 million Hong Kong dollars. According to industry consultants, the news of the potential closure came after the Hong Kong government released its latest retail sales figures, posting its 10th consecutive monthly drop in November of 2019 and striking a year-on-year decline of over 23%. Jewelry, watches, clocks, and luxury gifts formed the most seriously hit category, with a year-on-year plunge of 43.5%. The government blamed violent protests for disrupting tourism and affected consumption sentiments. In Calgary, Alberta, fans and Filipinos were excited to welcome senator and boxing icon Manny Pacquiao as he visited the place for the Maharlika Pilipinas Basketball League Tour. JC Yumo reports.
Basketball is a sport every Filipino love, no matter where they are.
Here in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, a semi-professional league, Maharlika Pilipinas Basketball League, known as the MPBL, will have its first stop for a series of regular season games between the Imus Bandera Lux Lean and Zamboanga Family Brand Sardines. Also, there is a selection game between the Manny Pacquiao All-Star team versus the Calgary All-Star selection. Maharlika Pilipinas Basketball League was founded by boxer and Philippine Senator Manny Pacquiao a couple of years ago. It features regional, commercial, and barangay level leagues with teams on the commercial side to have a common locality in addition to a corporate sponsor.
Yes, it's a young league. We're only into our third season, and we have already 2 international invitations, which is first in Dubai and here now in the second in Calgary. The purpose of this is again the awareness of our mga kababayan, Filipino people here around the globe, that this league is for players that will be given the chance, second chance and opportunities, best opportunities to showcase their talents. Because all we know, we know that the Pro League has only limited teams in the PBA. We have only 14 teams. So our CEO founder envisioned this league to give more, again, chances, second chances for our young players. And the most important thing here is the talent of the undiscovered talents of our homegrown players, which we call the local heroes.
Siguro sa dami ng mga trials na pinagdaanan ng Maharlika Pilipinas League at ngayon ang na-achieve namin is napakaganda yung resulta, yung feedback ng tao. Lagi nilang pinapanood yung Maharlika Pilipinas Basketball League. Talagang laging pasalamat natin at ang liga ng bawat Pilipino ay nakakapagbigay ng kasiyahan sa ating mga kababayan. Itong Maharlika Philippines Basketball League, ito ay para sa bawat Pilipino. Kasi marami mga galing na, alam natin pagdating sa basketball, yung Pilipino talagang love nila yung basketball. So ito yung pagkakataon na may pakita yung galing. Kasi maraming mga Pilipino na mahilig talaga sa basketball, magagaling. Kaso nga lang, hindi na ipapakita, hindi na nakikita ng taong bayan. So itong Maharlika Pilipinas magbigay ng chance sa kanila para maipakita yung galing nila.
To all of our kababayans, mga Filipinos abroad or in the country, in the Philippines, please again support this league, because we know this league is for our basketball fans, and not only for our basketball fans, because we believe also that again sports can definitely change lives, uplift the spirits of our Filipinos, and again motivate them every day. Especially they know that our CEO founder, Senator Manny Pacquiao, is the head of this league, and we're moving towards again bringing this league anywhere, and that's one of the vision also, because we believe also that bringing this game closer to the Filipino people is like you're bringing yourself, or bringing the game closest to their heart too.
From Calgary, Alberta, Canada, this is JC Yumo for Eagle News, and I am one with 25.
ABC Films Guerrero recently screened in Eastern Canada, and audience shared their favorite scenes of the movie. Sabir Mufti reports.
Guerrero, an Eagle News broadcasting film production, written and directed by Carlo J. Cuevas, simultaneously screens in both Ottawa and Montreal, Canada. Moviegoers in both locations are delighted to see this much-awaited film.
The movie follows the story of Ramon Guerrero, a boxer who experiences triumphs and failures in life with sheer determination and help of his younger brother Miguel. The film garnered numerous awards and nominations globally, such as Best in Feature Comedy Film in Amsterdam International Film Festival, Best Editing in a Foreign Language Film at Madrid International Film Festival, and Best Foreign Feature in Los Angeles Film Festival Awards. Guerrero was nominated Best Editing of a Foreign Language Film at the 2018 Nice International Film Festival of World Cinema in France. Guerrero is also the first venture of ABC Films in the production of inspirational movies, a movie that inspires moviegoers with life's values and real-life lessons that is different from the norm and culture. ABC Films anticipate that it will make people laugh and cry, but most importantly, it wants to inspire Filipinos here and around the world to face life with greater vigor and fight for their faith with stronger zeal.
Is a great success here in the Ottawa region. A lot of the brethren and officers participated, and we had some guests for tonight as well. Basing from the reaction of the brethren after the viewing, we could say that the brethren and the guests enjoyed the film in its entirety, and some are even saying that they want more. And fortunately, there's already a Guerrero 2 movie, and we're looking forward to have that be viewed here as well in the future. And activities like this definitely sparks love of the brotherhood, camaraderie, and with this, it helps in intensifying the faith of the brethren in this part of the world.
What's your favorite part about the movie?
The scenes between the brothers and how they really show how they care and love one another. I think it was very adorable. So I liked those scenes, especially the little kid who was very adorable.
What did you learn about the movie?
I learned that life will have a lot of failures, but I think what is important is that we must always continue on and strive to persevere in our lives. So I think that's what I took from the movie overall.
Favorite part about the movie?
The favorite part? My favorite part was that where the little kid had to express his feelings to his brother at the end, and then he found out where he was.
What lesson did you learn?
That no matter what happens, whatever trials you face, never give up and keep trying, keep on going on.
You invited me.
How did you like the movie?
The movies were pretty good with a very inspiring message. Ups and downs are a part of life, and it's been always how you imagine the life, how you pretend to live it. As the movie is very inspiring, the message was losing is a temporary part of the life. If you keep moving forward, you will be in the winning corner as well.
With the success of this film, moviegoers worldwide are anticipating for the next Guerrero film. Reporting from Ottawa and Montreal, Canada, this is Sabir Mufti. I am one with 25.
Thank you, Sabir. And the 131st Rose Parade in Los Angeles, New Year's Day 2020, was themed The Power of Hope. Our EBC correspondents Eva and Alan Basilyahe were at the scene. Take a look.
Some people say 2020 is the start of a new decade. Other people disagree. What's your vote?
Yeah, I think 2020 is the beginning of the new decade.
I say 2020 is the start of a new decade.
I was going to say start, but when I really thought about it, I think one is the start. So I think this is the end of a decade.
What is your New Year's resolution?
So less stress, and I think more kindness.
Enjoy life and enjoy every moment of it.
I'm going to try to be on my phone less this year because I'm on it a lot. Spend less time on my phone and more time with my kids and more time outside.
Fitting into those jeans again or reading some more books. But I think living every day and with that power of hope.
Happy New Year! We are one with 25!
Yay! Every New Year's Day, Pasadena, California is the capital for seekers of
marching bands, equestrian units, and oh yes, floats.
People talked about what brought them out to Pasadena and their experience watching the parade in person.
Excited to watch the Ducks play in the Rose Bowl and be here in Pasadena and watch the parade and the game.
New Year's Day combined with so nice weather, a big blimp flying above us. I mean, what more can you ask for right now?
So our son is a senior at Madison, and he is in the marching band, and so he will be marching down the street here very soon.
Live flowers on every single float. There is no color spray paint or anything like that. It's flowers, it's seeds, it's everything. It's all natural. It's unbelievable.
We have the Rose Parade in Portland. That's what I'm used to seeing. So I guess I'm here at the granddaddy of parades as well as the games.
It's hard to believe what they do with all of the, materials that they use. It's fascinating and it's beautiful.
Prepare for a lot of traffic to get here in the last 1 mile.
I can't put it in words because it's so beautiful and everything, instead of watching it on TV. So being here changes everything.
It's being with all the people, seeing the same thing, and especially if you go and see the floats earlier and seeing the last minute touches, and then to actually see them come down the street and say, wow, we were able to see them working on that. And it's, I don't know, it's just kind of thrilling.
It's the most beautiful show that is possible. I go to it like every year, and every year it's such a huge source of positive emotions. Even people who do not like flowers, they really enjoy it, and I enjoy it for sure.
I loved it. It's just beautiful, and all the roses are amazing, and it's very well organized, and it's a very happy way to start the new year.
I used to watch it on the TV as a kid, so now to see it in person and see all these beautiful flowers up close, it's really amazing. It's beautiful to see all the detail work. I mean, things I never knew, like all of the wording of things are laid by beams one by one, and to see that up close is something you can't get on the TV.
Just the amount of effort that goes into all these floats, the detail with every single little bit of flower. You get up close to them, you see them out, you're like amazed how, much work this went into the parade floats. You don't really see that on television, but here you do see it in person. You see, wow, that's a lot of work. That's really beautiful.
The floats are amazing, either watching the parade or seeing them up close. It's nothing like what you see on TV. It's really cool to be here.
The theme for this year's parade is the power of hope. We asked attendees what their hope would be for humankind.
I wish everybody would just be kinder to each other. I think it would just make things a lot easier if everyone just had kindness.
Other than hoping for a duck victory, peace, and everybody has a place to shelter.
Less divide and more, unity.
We can see our similarities and focus less on our differences.
Get along a lot more.
I hate the hate in the world lately, and I just would like everybody to just calm down and just enjoy the fact that we have a life, and more kindness for sure.
After seeing the size and grandeur of these floats in person, it's no wonder that an estimated 800,000 attendants,
plus millions of viewers worldwide, spend their New Year's morning watching the Rose Parade.
In Pasadena, California, Eva and Alan, Eagle News, we are 1 with 25.
Of Old Lang Syne. Happy New Year, Eagle News viewers.
Happy New Year too, and that's the news for tonight. I'm Alma Angeles. Join us online and here again on Monday evening. From all of us here, I'm always 1 with 25. Good night.